Excellencies, friends and colleagues, we are here to appeal to your positive response to the business action pledges that we are sponsoring together with the Global Compact. And your support has never been more necessary. I hate to talk about numbers, because numbers dehumanize problems, and what we are dealing is with people, and people that suffer enormously. People that have seen, many of them, their houses destroyed, members of their family killed, their communities also collapsing. But numbers are also important to show the scale and the staggering escalation of the problem. In 2010, 11,000 people were displaced in the world by conflict per day. 2010, 11,000. 2011, 14,000. 2012, 23,000. 2013, 32,000. Last year, 42,000 and a half. And this shows that we live in a world where conflicts are multiplying, new conflicts emerge everywhere, and old conflicts seem never to die. A world in which, with unclear power relations, unpredictability and impunity became the name of the game. And that is exactly why it is extremely important to respond to this enormous suffering, and that is why the private sector contribution is essential. Humanitarian aid agencies, both international organizations, NGOs, the Red Cross and Crescent Movement, are indeed in big trouble to be able to respond to these dramatic needs. And we need the management capacity, the technology, the expertise that we can only find in the private sector. So the best way to support us is through partnerships in which your core competencies can be brought into action. Namely, Mark Zuckerberg was talking about connectivity, internet connectivity in refugee camps. But also mobile communications, from family tracing to transfer of money to vulnerable families. But also new forms of energy in remote locations, or better shelter, like IKEA will immediately talk about. Supply chain and logistics, many other aspects of management in which you can help us to improve our response. But not only that, it is also obviously a possibility for foundations, corporations to financially support humanitarian agencies, but especially to engage their staff and their clients, both in humanitarian aid, but also in advocacy in relation to humanitarian causes. And the question of advocacy is central for us. I remember in my government, when we decided to legalize all the irregular migrants in my country, our best allies were the business community, the private sector. Because they wanted a labour market that could work legally. And today, there is a lot you can do, especially those corporations that operate in countries in the developing world where refugees are. A lot you can do in order to convince governments to allow those refugees to benefit from the social sectors of education or health, or to be allowed to work. Especially because, contrary to the impression that many people have, the overwhelming majority of refugees live in urban centres, live in communities, not in refugee camps. And it's important that they give their contribution to the development of the countries where they stay. And finally, and more important than anything else, your permanent voice. Your permanent voice in order to make sure that those that are the most vulnerable of the vulnerable are also integrated in the SDGs, because one of the objectives of the SDGs is not to let anybody on the way.